I'm going to tell you today that Agnes Bings was assaulted. She was strangled, okay? But she was disemboweled.
Yeah, that was a last minute thing.
Okay.
What I'm feeling is that I'm doing it to make a statement.
Okay, so like almost not a cover-up, not a way to make it look like something else?
Yeah.
You're trying to make it look like something else, or you're trying to make it a big deal?
Trying to make it look like something else.
Okay, so you're trying to cover up what you've done, and you want to blame Jack the Ripper-like person.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, God. All right, that's pretty awful. I mean, Jack did it because he was nuts and insane.
And he liked it.
And he liked it, which is insane.
Yeah.
But to think somebody might do it as a cover-up is even worse, I think, because they're not insane, theoretically.
Welcome to Seeing Dead People, the slow burn storytelling podcast where our host, Nicola, challenges her psychic friend Darcy to communicate with the dead and unravel historical ghost stories, unsolved true crime mysteries, and all things paranormal. If you want to be spooked, amazed, and entertained, stick around for an astonishing, deep dive convo with the spirits on the other side. Radio Sydney presents Seeing Dead People, Episode 23, Mrs. Bings Meets a Madman.
Well, hey, Darcy, how are you today?
I'm fine. How are you, Nicola?
I'm great, and we're meeting again, a second time, face-to-face. This is fantastic. We're in downtown Radio Sydney, which is really exciting. I love getting a chance to see you face-to-face, so thanks for coming up here. Today, Darcy, our mystery might be very difficult for you to solve. I've got a compelling and famous local case, but since it occurred in 1899, relevant photographs are scarce. But I thought I'm going to push the boat out and give it to us because I think you can handle it. You're going to have to rely mainly on my story with a few photographs. However, I'm confident you will exhibit your usual amazing intuition, especially as there's a supernatural element involved. So, as I always ask you, are you game, Darcy?
I am game.
Good. And just for fun, I'm going to ask you right up front, any inklings? Because sometimes you have them driving here, walking up the stairs, whatever.
Well, it's a little older than I thought it would be for some reason.
Okay.
Because this morning I saw a lady, her hair up like where it had the ringlets and everything.
Okay.
So I would have put it about 1920 maybe.
Okay.
Okay. But, you know, as we have experienced even in our lifetime, styles recycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was the dress.
Okay.
Because it struck me as being regal, but it also had that flimsy
Oh, all
feel
right.
to it.
Okay.
And then and this is going to sound really weird, but then it made me think of a Jersey cow for some reason. And I was thinking Bessie, and so I'm going to keep that sound because I think somehow it fits in.
Okay, well, we shall find out. Okay, well, today we are looking into an unsolved case which occurred nearly 123 years ago, so a heck of a long time, but it occurred right on our doorstep in Victoria, British Columbia. The date, Darcy, is Friday, September 29th, in the last year of the 19th century. Our starting location is the Pilgrim Bakery, located on Store Street in downtown Victoria, near today's Market Square. But our scene of crime is elsewhere. So before I go any further, Darcy, I'd like to give you and our listeners an idea of just what a downtown Victoria shop looked like in the late 19th century. Sadly, I don't have a pic of our Pilgrim Bakery. However, have a look at photo number 1. It was taken in 1899 and shows us Scott and Pedden's feed store, which was located nearby our bakery. So, Darcy, have a look, and can you tell us about this photograph, especially about the environment, the clothing, the conditions in this time frame, because I think it'll really help us have a better understanding of what life was like in 1899 in Victoria.
Okay, well, outside the ground looks like it's hard-packed soil, mud. Mm-hmm. The two shopkeepers with their aprons on are laborers, and their hats The white shirt tie, even as a laborer, you still needed the tie.
Right.
The Clydesdale horse, and I realize that's a flatbed buggy.
Oh, all right.
Okay, but I at first I thought it was just like a carrier, but then I'm wondering if those bags of seed, whatever they were.
Yeah, bag of
the
something,
burlap
seed. Yeah.
bags are on the flatbed, or whether that's the weirdest looking buggy I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think those bags of seed or whatever are in the background on the sidewalk, if you can call
Okay.
it that. And that was just a short little buggy.
Yeah.
Just literally a guy sitting on top of a buggy, almost like you'd have in harness racing.
Yeah,
You know,
but
not very big. No,
but
nothing
those
covering it.
Clydesdales would be something that would pull a heavy load. So
Exactly.
Maybe it's like the big rigs where you attach something.
Yes, I think you could be right. This could be the cab
Yeah.
of a big rig, and they have yet to attach the long trailer on the back.
There's ladders outside. There's awning, striped awning. There's 5 men all together, plus there's a lady in shadow.
Where's the
And,
lady in the shadow?
On your left-hand side of the picture,
Okay.
there's the young man. I'm guessing he's young, with the cap on, the white shirt, the vest.
Oh, yeah, he's just behind the seed pile? Yes.
And there's a lady, so I'm going to say there's a dead lady in the background.
Oh, okay.
Let's say that.
I don't see her. All right.
Okay, and it says 296 something.
Yeah, that must be the address, I
The
think, on
address?
Store Street.
Yeah. And, bags of whatever in the window, all the cups. Reminds me of Little Chinatown, the way the cups are all stacked and
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely, and it's gray and white.
Yeah, and it sure gives a sense of life in downtown Victoria. So different than what life would be like.
You'd be taking your boots off at the door because you
Yeah.
wouldn't be bringing that mud in.
No, exactly. Living in a kind of a muddy, grimy town. Okay.
But is this okay, if we go to downtown where that square is where
Yep.
you walk down Marketplace, is this that front part of it?
That's the main road, Store
Okay.
Street. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's have a look then at our second photograph showing another street scene with buildings. This is kind of hard to figure out, but it gives another sense of what the area might have looked or did look like at the time. You'll see, Darcy, there's a building, a wooden building with kind of slats, really a ramshackle affair with missing boards, and it looks like laundry on the top, washing out to dry, a building in the backyard, again, the dirty street. So this, again, is an area near where our bakery was located at probably almost exactly the same year. Do you get a sense of anything from that?
Well, this is definitely a laundry.
Yeah.
Okay, no two ways about it.
Okay.
Very, like, this would, to me, be the bad part of town that you don't want to go into a dark alley.
Yeah, I would think so.
Obviously, there's been a lot of water down below, but what I find interesting is there's probably been a few hangings in this building, like
Get outta
below
here.
as well.
What, you see people jumping off or people
No,
dangling?
Dangling, one man in particular.
You're kidding.
So, it makes me think that maybe if they ran out of places to hang sailors, they might have
put it
used
here.
this. Yeah.
Okay. I have to say, I don't see that.
I, by any chance, it's a lady who got killed, right?
Well, we hadn't discussed that, but yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you know whether or not she had dark hair, and if she was, what's that, where you own the company?
Proprietor?
Thank you. Was she the
Proprietor of the store? You're jumping ahead
Sorry.
of us. Okay. That's okay. You're always jumping ahead.
She just, I could see her walk by.
Wow.
And very much stature.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And very much like, let's call her a lady, because if we call her anything else, we're going to get wrapped not only on the knuckles, but the knees and in the head.
Okay. Okay. Well, as you can see, this is sort of a grimy, as you say, not the greatest part of town. So I'm hoping her actual bakery is not exactly in this location, but it's on Store Street somewhere nearby. Now we're getting to the hour of our crime happening. It's roughly, imagine, 7:30 in the evening in late September. So the sun set around 6 p.m. So now we're in a grimy downtown locale like we see in these pictures. Now it's pretty dark out, okay? Not a lot of passersby, and the weather doesn't help. It's terrible, terrible night. It's pelting rain, and there's a gale force wind.
Wow.
So not a pleasant night to be wandering around in a poorly lit, downtown, grimy kind of area with muddy streets. Any ideas about what might be happening to her or what she's up to before we go further?
I have a pain in my back, which means she's probably been stabbed.
Okay.
Okay. And it's over this shoulder, so over my right shoulder. And I also feel as though I've got hands around my throat.
Okay.
Okay. And interesting enough, I'm freezing.
Well.
Like as though I was killed outside, not inside.
Okay. All right. Good.
Okay.
All right. Well, as I mentioned before, the paranormal is involved. So today, in the last, decades, a ghostly apparition of our main character has been seen near Market Square and near our crime scene, which I've not told you about yet. You've told us a little bit about this spirit that you're seeing. So let's now meet her. She was a 44-year-old woman named Agnes Smith. That was her maiden name. She was originally from Germany. She came to Canada's West Coast in her early 30s, roughly. She has a life in Victoria where she is a proprietor, co-owner, so to speak, of a bakery. She's got a family, and I was wondering if you could tell us anything more about her family, her life, just what she was like before I take you any further and give you any more details.
Okay, do you know whether she had a son? Because I have a young boy here. And I feel like I would have doted on him, that he would have been the apple of my eye. Okay?
Well.
And that I wasn't sure if there's more, but I can really feel the boy. But I'm going to say there's a girl here too, by the feels of it. Okay? But I'm not as invested in the girl as I am in the son.
Okay. I'll tell you a little bit about her family then. She eventually married a Scotsman whose name was John Bings. Okay, so she became Agnes Bings. John worked with the Esquimalt and Nanaimo Railway, but a few years earlier, he suffered a stroke, sadly, and he was paralyzed. So he wasn't able to work anymore. Now, Agnes, who is known as industrious, very respectable, and very hardworking, opened the Pilgrim Bakery Shop on Store Street as a co-ownership with her husband, but she was the one who worked the store, and to support her husband and young son.
All right.
Okay? The bakery was an extended family affair because they employed Agnes's brother, who's named William Jordan. He was their baker. On the eve of the 29th, Agnes closed the shop up. As I said, it was a terribly awful weather-wise evening, left the bakery, and she was burdened by heavy packages. She'd even asked William to walk her home to her place in Vic West. Tragically, William said no. He was supposedly too engrossed in a book, and off she went on her own into the dark and stormy night, truthfully. So around 7:30 in the early evening, in the pitch dark, really it's not a well-lit locale, she's struggling with her packages and battling ferocious winds and rain. She strode out into the dark en route to Vic West, where she shared a home with her husband John and her son Arthur, who was roughly 8 years of age. Is that kind of what you see?
I would have said he was younger.
Okay.
But I'll take 8.
Okay.
Okay, I would have thought maybe 7.5, 7.
Okay.
Let's not be fussy here.
Yeah, let's not be fussy. You're close enough. There is no little girl.
No, but
As far as I know, historically, they may have had a girl and lost her.
Yeah.
I don't know, so I can't tell you that. So unfortunately, Agnes made a fateful and disastrous decision. Instead of following the safer, brighter lit streets as her route home to Vic West, she did what many of us would have done on a night like that. She took a lonely shortcut, one she'd taken many times before, and she trudged across the Esquimalt and Nanaimo Railway trestle, which spanned the narrow waters between the inner harbor of Victoria and the upper harbors of Victoria. So have a look at photo number 3. Darcy, it's a Google map that shows us the route Agnes took. I'm not exactly sure where her house was on Russell Street on the left-hand side, so I'm guessing it was a distance of roughly 2 kilometers to walk. Okay? And you can see the span, the blue line marking her path, would have been her path. The span across the water is where the railway trestle is. And that today is almost exactly where the Johnson Street Bridge is.
Yeah.
Same location, okay? So, as you can see, anybody would take the shortest route on a night like that. You'd go across the railway trestle. However, to give her credit, the route was well traveled. It's not like nobody used it. And it was close to occupied houses, so it's not obviously dangerous or remote.
Yeah.
She didn't do something stupid. It must be said, though, few other women might have walked that or dared to walk in her shoes that night because it was a pretty dark and nasty night. But she was brave, foolish, in a hurry, or all of the above. Who knows? Now, before we go into any details of the actual crime, have a look at photo number 4. I think it's a really neat shot. It's a black and white taken from the Parliament buildings, okay, looking down into the harbor and in the late 1890s. So you can see the buildings in the downtown core, and way, way in the upper left, you'll see the railway bridge. So that's the actual bridge, very similar time frame, 1897, to when Agnes would have walked across it on that stormy night. So she was going from Store Street in the downtown on the right-hand side, across the railway trestle on to the left-hand side to Vic West. Now, Darcy, what happened to Agnes Bings on September 29th, 1899, on way home?
Well, I'm not... Okay, I go back to the feel of, okay, either she was stabbed or hit from behind.
Okay, so you're changing that stabbing to possibly a hit.
A hit,
okay,
because there's a blow.
all right.
All right. I feel her stumble, and then I also feel hands on my throat.
Okay.
All right. Because I'm so cold, I don't know if it's because she was wet from the weather or whether it's because I didn't think they threw her in the water because they found her.
When you're talking they.
Oh, there's more than one person.
Okay.
Okay, there's 2 people, and part of me says this is a crime of opportunity, okay? But the other part says this is a planned crime of opportunity.
Okay.
Okay, someone knew her movements.
Right. Okay.
Okay, and this isn't her husband. So I'm going to rule him out. Okay. But I don't know if I can rule out William.
Okay.
Because there's just something... That time frame, no man would have let a woman walk home on her own in that kind of weather.
That's kind of what I thought. And I thought, what a crappy brother he was to do that. Now, I don't know where he lived. You know, was it a 20-minute walk home for him and a 20-minute walk back and he was tired or something? But I thought it was a crappy thing to do, yeah.
Yeah. But this is it's a crime of opportunity, but I keep hearing it's a planned crime of opportunity.
Okay.
Someone, and like these weren't just the 2 people waiting for her. I think strategically we might have had people somewhere else too.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, you know, like... I can't put it down to a mob hit. Oh, maybe I could. But there is question about taking over the store front.
Okay. So you think that might have been the motive?
Yeah, because it is a lucrative business.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's the only business of that bread making kind there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Italian influence is quite prominent in the square area because I believe it was an Italian person who built the area up, and at least that's what I'm picking up right now.
Okay.
Okay, and remember the Bessie?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if we change some of the letters from Bessie to an I or an O, we've got a BC or a Bossy in the area.
Okay.
So changing I know it's a weird way to find names, okay?
Okay.
But it's how it happens.
That's okay.
And I'm not saying 100% that this person's involved in it, but maybe someone he was associated to could have been.
Okay. All right. Well, I think you're going to be surprised. I think I'm going to be able to get you this time because I don't know. But I'll say her husband, John, was filled with anxiety and concern when his wife didn't arrive home. He waited until midnight. Then he came to the conclusion, maybe not wrongly so, as you might think, that his wife stayed in town with some friends because of such a crappy night. So it's not clear whether John called the police or friends called the police, but eventually the police were called, and they immediately began a search. Sadly, the worst scenario played out, and Agnes's lifeless body was found Saturday morning at 9 o'clock.
On the beach?
Yes. Down the embankment from the railway trestle on the beach. Exactly. Okay? So well done there. Can you tell us about what happened to her? Because this is where I think I'm going to get you.
Okay. I honestly do not believe she got ran over by the train.
No, correct. She did not.
Do not believe that she stumbled and fell on her own steam.
Okay, correct.
Okay. I do feel other people are involved. I don't hear a retort as though there's a gun.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not hearing that. But I do feel like, okay, still something to the back and then to the front.
Okay.
So either she was hit, pushed, stabbed. I don't think she was shot. I'm not feeling that same kind of burn that I would get with a shot. Like, I'm still looking for it. But it's a weird feeling. Like, when a knife goes in, there's this cold feeling.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to take your word for it.
But when you're shot, it sort of burns.
Okay. Again, I'll take your word for it.
And I don't feel that.
Okay. All right.
So I'm thinking she was either stabbed, hit, pushed, and then she was strangled. That's
All
what
right.
it feels like.
Well, the poor gal was discovered crumpled up against a telephone pole and a fence about 10 feet off the train tracks down near the beach in Vic West on what was at the time called the Songhees Indian Reservation. So she barely made it off that railway trestle as she got heading home before being attacked, brutally attacked, on the way home. So I'm going to give you a clue because there's something you haven't got, and I think it's amazing. We had a discussion about England's most famous serial killer.
Well, I was, okay.
So-
so I was going to say that it is feasible she may have been, wow. Okay, raped in the process.
Okay.
Okay, but I was hoping I was wrong.
I don't know about the rape, but something else happened to her body.
But she would have been carved up like the Jack the Ripper.
Say that again?
She would have been carved up like Jack the Ripper.
Right. And you don't see that?
I see the knife,
Okay.
but I don't know whether she doesn't want to look to see what's wrong, like that either her breast or her ladies' parts are missing. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know if she wants to see that.
So, because she may not want to see that, you can't see that.
That's
She's
right.
blocking you from seeing
She's
that.
blocking me because the first person I actually thought of was Mary. You know, the lady from Jack the Ripper.
Mary Kelly.
Yeah.
Okay, and she
That-
was brutally
Yeah.
assaulted.
And that's who I first thought of. I was going to ask you if Mary is involved in this.
Okay.
Okay. But it's not as brutal as Mary.
No, she was horrifically
Yeah.
damaged.
This
okay.
is,
Dorian here rudely cutting in, but the mention of Dear Jack prompts me to remind you to catch episode 11, Who Was Jack the Ripper?, where Nicola and Darcy prowl the twisted, dangerous streets of London's Whitechapel in 1888. In search of the world's most infamous and brutal serial killer, Darcy quickly tunes in to the Ripper's victims, suggesting a new double motive for their killings, and indicating which gal was Jack's prime target and why. Then, amazingly, our psychic names the infamous homicidal maniac. The revelation will take your breath away. Now we slip back to 1899 Victoria, BC. Has Jack the Ripper fled to the obscurity of Canada's wild west coast?
this is still planned.
Okay. Well,
No matter how I get around it, I
all
hear
right.
this is planned.
This is it. That's really interesting because for the most part, for number one, this is considered Victoria's Jack the Ripper-like killing.
Yeah, but he's the only one.
It is the only one.
So,
However, no, it wasn't a serial killing.
No.
However, and as you know, in our episode 11, when we talked about Jack the Ripper terrorizing London, England in 1888, this comes a decade later, almost to the day practically. And I'm going to boast to our readers about you because when we talked about Jack in episode 11, I showed you four photographs of the men considered to be most likely to be Jack the Ripper. And you nailed the one man that everybody who's a Ripperologist, i.e. an expert in Jack the Ripper, seems like a lot of people, who said, this is the guy who's Jack the Ripper, and you nailed him. So that was an amazing thing. I'm going to tell you today that Agnes Bings was assaulted. She was strangled, okay, but she was disemboweled.
Yeah, that was a last minute thing.
Okay.
What I'm feeling is that I'm doing it to make a statement.
Okay, so like almost not a cover-up, not a way to make it look like something else?
Yeah.
You're trying to make it look like something else, or you're trying to make it a big deal?
Trying to make it look like something else.
Okay, so you're trying to cover up what you've done, and you want to blame Jack the Ripper-like person.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, God. All right, that's pretty awful. I mean, Jack did it because he was nuts and insane.
And he liked it.
And he liked it, which is insane.
Yeah.
But to think somebody might do it as a cover-up is even worse, I think, because they're not insane, theoretically. Well, I'm going to tell you, an inquest later revealed that a policeman walking down the train track discovered her body, okay, lying on its back, okay, directly down from the embankment on the beach. And she was, did she or did she not have clothing on? I'm asking you.
I'm thinking she was clothed.
Okay, she was naked. However, this is weird. She had an undershirt thrown over her body.
Oh, so she was clothed.
So she was, exactly, she had clothing. Not her clothing.
No, but the other person's clothing.
Yeah, so whose clothing? It was never discovered whose clothing. There was no obvious signs of a struggle, so your idea of being struck from behind makes sense, that she would be knocked down, stumble down the embankment. The manner of her death was so horrific, they said, that one newspaper refused to print details, calling them too revolting for publication, and adding that the deed could only be the work of some insane fiend, which is kind of like Jack, but you're saying not necessarily. We're talking about a fiend, but maybe not somebody who's insane. Other papers, of course, printed the details. They were lurid. Agnes Bings was strangled, as you suggested, possibly by a rope or a strap, because there were deep lines extending from behind her ears right along to her windpipe in the front. So pretty awful. Then to add a further shameful insult, every bit of her clothing was ripped off, leaving her naked. Okay. There was very little blood found, but, it was torrentially raining, so I can't imagine much blood would be hanging about 7, 8, 10 hours later. But that's not the worst, of course. She had wounds to her neck, because she was strangled, and her genital area. And did I mention Jack? Very similar to Jack, she was disemboweled. 10 feet of her small intestine and 2 feet of her large intestines were torn from her body entirely and discovered discarded nearby. God help us. And then one of her ovaries and her womb lay outside her body, not completely detached. So very much in vein of Jack the Ripper style.
Well, it's very feasible that the intestines weren't, he may have pulled them out, but given that there's wildlife down here, I'm sort of thinking the wildlife are the ones who pulled it farther out.
Okay, yes, because they do scavenge. Of course, and many hours later she was found, so they wouldn't have known that at the time. You're right.
But they didn't find her clothes here.
Never.
Because her clothes aren't here. If they had dredged the water, they probably would have found them there.
Okay.
Because at one point that water would have been up, where the brown
Sure,
the rock
exactly.
is.
It's tidal. Yeah.
So, and when you said she's fallen down the bank, so when we're looking at the picture and we've got the railroad ties and everything, are we talking down there where the grassy spot is? Or down a little farther down the beach?
I think it's down a little farther on the beach, but it's kind of, it's not exactly clearly laid out.
So if you look at your picture and you know where your number 5 is?
You're in photo number 5. Okay, yeah, we moved forward to the actual close-up of the railway trestle bridge.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And if you put your finger on the end of number 5, the very end of it,
okay,
and draw down, and there's like a log or something right there I don't know what it is. It's black and...
We're talking, let's see, show your picture to me.
Okay.
So you're taking the number 5, you're drawing right down. You're going on a diagonal, right? Okay, from number 5.
Whoops. No.
Got it.
And if you come down to...
Okay, there's a rock dead center of the picture.
And I would say that is where they found her.
Okay, well, that looks to me, based on the theory that they said she was 10 feet down from the embankment. That looks maybe a little bit longer than 10 feet, but who really knows, right? So that's roughly, you got the idea that she was killed there. She wasn't killed somewhere in a Vic West, and she wasn't killed on Store Street. You knew that, okay? So why would, you've given us some ideas, and I got to let us know that her horrific wounds were done post-mortem. So she was strangled.
She was already dead.
And then she was already dead. So why would an average, independent, upright businesswoman be targeted in such a horrific way? You've given us some ideas. Can you expand on that?
Well, for me, the feel is that because they were trying to degrade her femininity, the fact that she could be so strong and running a business and having her husband John at home and she's looking after everything, that they were disfiguring who she was. Mm-hmm. But I also feel that they were trying to, I guess it's along the same line, take away her power.
Yeah, of course.
Because women, I mean, if you're ever watched Dan Brown's series, with
Tom Hanks
and the belief that the chalice
yes
is the source of strength, which makes it a woman.
Right.
So with that, they're still taking it away. And there's intent here. This person knowingly was going to kill her.
Okay.
Okay, because if you notice, none of her packages are found either.
Yeah, I wondered about that. They never mentioned in what I could find. It was never mentioned in the research, so I don't know what happened to them.
And, well, my feeling is they're all been tossed into the bay.
The water's right nearby.
And this was, it was almost like an act of revenge, like you belittled me, so I'm going to belittle you.
Wow.
That's what it feels like. So I don't feel the person is depraved because they never did it again.
Okay.
I think this was anger and jealousy and determination to take control.
And that leads us to William Jordan, the brother, more likely than an insane Jack the Ripper look-alike.
It does.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. How about the one article of hers that was found was her purse. Have you got a sense of anything about the purse?
Well, if there was money in it, I'm thinking there's still the possession, that whatever was in it is still in it. It never, it's like it's not of value. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, it was found like a few hundred yards away.
Okay. When
Actually, 30 feet or so away, leading to the reserve, quite a distance from where her body was. She had, they think, $5 or $6, and that was gone. And she was missing 2 rings on her hands. I don't know if a wedding ring or not. Didn't mention that. So something was taken, but I can't see that as being robbery. You think it was, again, part of the cover-up idea?
Yeah, it's part of the cover-up, because if it had been robbery, why kill her? Why go to such extent?
Well, exactly, yeah. And then disembowel her.
Yeah.
My God, the horrendous thing to do to somebody. Unbelievable. So it appears that, based what I've read, during the 19th century, Victoria wasn't the safe and clean city we enjoy now. No. We can see pictures of it. And newspaper accounts actually suggest that men with unbalanced minds roamed the city. This was a fear that was at the time. Though not fit for the asylum yet, it was suggested they require a close watch by the police. Now, interestingly, the same publication admitted that since Agnes was found on the Songhees Reservation, there may be a First Nations connection. And many folks wondered whether the murderer left by boat following her death. And if you look at photo number 6, you'll see a beach. And that is the Songhees Indian Reservation at the time, near the bridge. And you can tell us what do you see on that beach, Darcy, and give us a sense of kind of a getaway car here they might have used.
Well, there's boats, and those would, by the looks of it, traditional.
Yep.
And there's men on it and everything, but he walked away.
Okay. All right.
There is no way he used one of these vessels. He walked away.
But you can see how the public initially might have thought the Songhees Nation could be involved. Someone from the nation could be involved, given its location, given the boats. But in fact, and then of course there was a terrible prejudice and injustice towards First Nations at the time.
Yeah.
However, that same newspaper that said it wasn't safe and that there were crazy men all around. Also said that there was no reason to believe it was a First Nations person. There was no obvious motivation, and that wasn't something that they normally did, kill people and disembowel them.
Yeah, this is not
it's
a
not
First
their
Nations person.
Exactly, yeah,
I
okay.
can
Well, then
guarantee
you
that
agree with
one.
that. Okay. Despite extensive efforts, no evidence, no suspects came to light in the first few days following this gruesome slaying. So, lead Victoria Police Detective Palmer and his crew of cops were stymied. So the police called in the big guns from the U.S. This is amazing. On October 11th, so just a few days later, a detective from the famous Pinkerton Agency, believe it or not, arrived by steamship from Portland. He was known only as Agent 5. And his mission was to find Canada's Jack the Ripper. Can you imagine? There was a rough description of the murderer. It came from another woman who was doing the same walk in a rough time frame that night. She said she saw a man, and I'm going to say, do you have a sense of what that man might have looked like?
5'10" to 6 feet. I would say slender, not obese. Looks like he's got dark hair. He's wearing laborer's clothes.
What does that mean?
Okay, so they're not fancy clothes.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm wondering if she said he walked funny. Now, it could have been the way if he was walking on a trestle and like that.
Yeah, it's hard to walk on a trestle, isn't it?
So it could have just been if she said he walked funny, that could have been from the trestle. It may not have been a deformity. I would say I'm leaning a little closer to 5'9", 5'10" in height. I realized if he had a hat on, it could distort his image. But if he had a hat, it was more like the cap type of
Okay,
hat.
a peaky kind of thing?
Yeah. He doesn't smell like he's uncleaned.
Okay.
Okay. And in case people are wondering, I just sniffed the air to see if I could smell him. There's something on his face. Now, is that sideburns or a mustache? I could see where they thought it might be Jack the Ripper. Okay. He sort of has the same kind of look.
Okay, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is how she described the fellow. Now, remember, we're talking pouring rain, gale force winds, dark, 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 right?
Well, if he had a jacket and is flapping over, he's probably thinking he's heavy, but he's not.
She just said he was a man in an overcoat. He moved quickly, hid his face with a scarf. Okay, so that could be what was on his face, not a mustache.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is most interesting. I like this because you said something about the way he walked. Well, he walked a bit oddly. She thought he was muffling his steps because he wore rubber boots. So when you walk in rubber boots, you don't walk like when you walk in shoes. So I think that's pretty cool that you nailed that right away. She thought the man was following her. So she panicked and turned around and jumped into a group of guys going the other direction back to where she came. And so she was safe. She said she heard screams a few minutes later, but I think that's over the top given the gale force winds. I think she's just padding her story after the fact. One other interesting attempt to find out what happened here occurred a few days later, and it's right up your alley. And
They brought a medium in to see if they can find it.
Are you saying that? Are you saying that as a question? You're saying
no,
it.
I'm saying they brought a medium to see if she could pinpoint who the person was.
Damn. Okay, tell us about that.
She was actually quite famous.
Oh, really?
It wasn't an everyday medium like we're plucking them off the
street.
She was known as Madame. Oh, come on, give it to me, Madame. I want to say it starts with a T, or it has the T sound in it, but. She actually feels as though she walked the same route.
Okay.
And she might have been out a few feet to where she died, but she walked the same route she was able to describe, but she was seeing it through Mary's eyes. Oh, why do I keep hearing Mary?
Yeah, why do you keep hearing Mary Kelly?
And it's not Mary Kelly, it's just Mary.
Okay. Who the heck is Mary?
I don't know.
Okay.
But she seemed to see it through the eyes. So maybe this guy's killed before, but not so gruesomely.
I don't know, because you had originally said this was a planned killing and targeting a gal.
This is a planned killing, but they may have used someone who liked to kill. May
So
have
they
been
paid somebody to do
Yeah.
this job? Oh, gross. Okay.
But it got out of hand. But I keep hearing the Mary keeps coming into my head, so it's got to be connected somewhere.
Well, I have to tell you, I know nothing about a Mary at all. So that's interesting. This psychic, they call her a psychic, they didn't call her a medium, was actually a young woman. Very young, only 21.
Well, then she lived a long life because I'm seeing her as old.
Older, okay. Her name was Harris. Okay, I don't know what her first name was. Maybe it was with a T. She was taken to the scene of the crime, so she walked the route. At the locale where the body was found, she was silent for 8 minutes, I guess soaking in the atmosphere and trying to relive what happened. Then she began her account, and she said she saw a man and a woman coming along the tracks. Then she says her vision was blurred. Then she could see the murderer, after the fact, wiping his hands on Agnes's silk or whatever stockings before he headed back to town on the trestle. She said he paused, dropped the stockings into the water, and then continued on foot, back onto the Victoria side, wandered up and down the waterfront. Her theory was he was looking for a boat to escape with. That's all she saw.
No, I went into the hotel that was there.
Ah, which hotel was that? How far did he have to go?
Okay, so if we go back to, if we're walking along the wharf, and where the Bastion
Square, right?
and just a little up from there, there's a hotel, or used to be a hotel.
Okay.
That's where he went. He was a hotel boarding house.
Okay, she didn't see him going into that. In fact, she saw him going all the way to what was a bridge to James Bay in the old days when there was water, I think, covering almost where the Empress Hotel is now. There was a whole ton of water, and they had to bridge it. He went that way, and then he came back along the waterfront. That's what young Miss Harris, age 21, psychic, said. So her account and your account differ to some extent, but there are some similarities. In the end, there was talk of William Jordan as possible suspect, but nothing ever came of it. Agent number 5, Mr. Pinkerton himself, came up with only one serious suspect. Have you any idea of what he might have come with?
I would have gone.
But he's paralyzed.
I know, but I still would have, if I had been him, I'd go with the husband.
Okay.
As the initiator of
As the initiator. Okay, so who would he have hired? Could you get a sense of the guy you might have hired, or persons you might have hired?
Like I said, it would be the person who did the crime.
Okay,
So-
and that's, you've described
Yeah.
him. Okay. What age would you say that person was?
Oh, I would say anywhere from 21 to, at that time, maybe 35.
Okay. The person they felt was the most likely suspect was a guy, 73 years of age.
No.
Now, he was vulgar, he was lewd, he was lowlife. He had been an auxiliary cop, believe it or not. His name was David MacDonald Gordon. He had really seamy underworld connections, and he appeared to know an awful lot about the case when an auxiliary cop wouldn't know that much. So he said someone else did it. They left town. What happened was he, not a nice guy anyway, got arrested for theft, thrown in jail. Pinkerton thought, oh, great opportunity. And they very quickly did something. Tossed into the jail agent number 3 from Pinkerton, okay, as an undercover, checking on him. So agent number 3 was convinced he was guilty. However, Gordon, the guy, died in jail from a pulmonary problem fairly soon after he was put into jail for theft, never admitted his guilt. So the truth of the matter is they didn't get anybody for this crime.
And
So
it wasn't him.
It wasn't him. Okay.
He may have been involved, let's say, in hiring the other person, but
Okay.
he didn't have the strength
Okay.
or the stamina to be able to pull this crime off.
Okay. So let's have your theory on how this went.
I, in all honesty, feel that if the person wasn't hired by William,
Okay. That's the brother.
that's the brother.
Okay.
Well, isn't he the brother-in-law?
No, her brother.
Her brother.
Her direct brother. Yeah.
Because I want control.
Okay, so you're moving away from the husband and moving towards
I
the
never
brother?
believed the husband
No.
was guilty.
No, I know, okay.
I think the
you
husband
right away
delayed.
said you thought it was William.
Yeah.
And it was a sign of his jealousy and inability
Yeah.
to cope with the fact that his sister was very successful and he may not have been so successful.
He had to work for his sister.
Exactly, he was the baker.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was the worker, not the owner.
That's right.
God, these men and their
Ego?
inability to be able to allow women to have some power is really sad.
Well, and then that was unheard of.
Yes, she was I think very rare, right? In 1899 to actually own a business and run it.
Technically, at that point in time, she would have had to live off her brother because her husband was incapable of working.
Right. Well, if she hadn't got the bakery going, and the husband, I presume, was involved in that part of perhaps the financial part, they would have been destitute without the brother. And who knows what the brother would have done. Obviously, he was no help because he had to be a baker.
Yeah.
I mean, they hired him as a baker. I don't think he had a job before that. We don't really know. Okay, so let's look at the last photograph. Maybe not. You can get something yet. This is Agnes's tombstone or grave marker. It's not a tombstone, it's a grave marker. It's in the Ross Bay Cemetery. Do you get a sense of it?
First of all, I'm going to say, do you see what I see?
Well, I read Schmidt, which we translate to Smith, Carol, and Mary. Oh my God, Darcy. The first time I really looked at that.
And
Mary.
And she died before Agnes.
Yeah, just a few years before. Who the heck was she? She was old.
Yeah, she could have been.
Who the heck was she?
Would she have been connected to Agnes
Or John.
or John?
Well, Agnes was a Smith, right? Which is Schmidt, I believe,
Yeah.
in German terms.
So it could have been her grandmother,
Grandmother, mother. I'll be darned, there's Mary. Oh, way to go, Darcy.
And
'Cause-
maybe Mary was following her that night as well, trying to keep her safe.
And she was only dead 3 years before.
Yeah.
Because we haven't said, this grave marker has Schmidt, Carol, and Mary, two individuals dying fairly soon, close together, 1893 and
Yeah.
1896. So
3
I don't.
years.
Yeah, and then the Bings themselves, John, who died in 1916, so he outlived his wife by 17 years, and Agnes, who died, of course, in 1899. So there's your Mary.
Yeah.
That's great. Honest to goodness, I focused slowly on the Bings. Didn't even notice Mary was there, and you had that right from the start.
So
Wow.
the psychic who did the walked it through Mary's eyes because there's no way Agnes could have endured seeing what happened to her.
So, are you able to see it through Mary's eyes?
I'm not allowed to see what happened to Agnes because we're looking for Agnes. I can see the blow, I can see the knife, I can see the strangling, but I don't want to see the rest.
Okay, well, then that's really interesting. Let me take you back to, for example, our Jack the Ripper. We had the 5 victims that were
know.
considered. They were able to look. Is that because what? Why?
I think they were able to look because they came from a lower section of life, so they saw it all.
Oh, okay.
Where
Agnes, yeah, had a better life, upper
Yeah.
life. Yeah, obviously not a highbrow life, but certainly she had a better life than the 5
had a
prostitutes
yeah.
from Jack the Ripper's time. Yeah,
she had a substantial life.
yeah, for sure. She had her own business, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Isn't that sad? A hard-working woman and she gets taken down by a guy who's jealous. Is that not the same old story you hear every day?
Almost.
You know, good grief, it never ends.
Jealousy is a wicked thing.
Isn't it? It is. It's it takes it to the root and never goes, doesn't it? It just downs deep in people and they can't let it go. It's very nasty, nasty. Well, thank you, Darcy. That was excellent. And that icing on the cake was Mary at the end. I thought, oh, this grave marker is not going to give you anything. And there's the name Mary. But do you actually get a sense of Agnes herself at all from the stone?
I get someone who's very generous, kind. She probably did a lot of community work too. So I'm thinking some of those packages were being given to people who could not afford to support themselves or buy the bread.
We knew, taking stuff home. You might well have been the day's end, old stuff. Well, when you see now I'm just going to ask because I've got you. You see a grave marker like this, we've got 2 family names and we've got 4 individuals on the grave marker. How do you separate, or do you separate those 4 people from your images, your ideas of what's going on?
They stand out like 3D.
Again, you and your 3D.
Yeah, they're
okay.
like 3D. So we're talking about Agnes, so I can see her stand out.
Okay.
Mary, strangely enough, goes deeper,
Okay.
which makes my connection between the two, because John and Carol are just flat. So they lived out a life where, everything was normal.
Okay.
If I put my hand over Agnes's name, then Mary still stands out different, okay? Whereas if I put my hand over John and Carol, they're the same. Carol probably had a more interesting life than John, even though John, working on the E&N trail line and everything, there's that for him, but she didn't get trapped in her body the same way John did.
He's literally trapped in his body. Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
And back then, they never thought to do therapy to help him move forward from a stroke.
No, you would just be done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. Wow. That's cool that you can actually get that 3D from a tombstone or a grave marker.
Yeah, and
I
from
mean,
a picture, too.
well, the picture I get a little bit because there's more in the picture, but this is just a gray, looks like granite stone.
Okay, and if we go back to picture number... Okay, so I'm going to
What picture number?
Picture number 5.
Okay, that's the close-up of the trestle.
Okay, so this is how I was looking at it. Okay, I never really opened them up.
Yeah, you're looking at it at a small size. I'm looking at it at a large size.
Okay, so on your large side, there is a child in that picture, correct?
Yes, there is a child in the picture. Yes, I wondered about that myself for a second there.
I
just
thought maybe I was...
in the lower left, there's a little kid in white. Yes, running along the beach.
Did you notice that she's a little translucent?
Well, she kind of looks like she's not there almost. Yeah, and I was wondering just the quality of the photograph.
Let's hope so.
Or whatever. Yeah, I hope so. Or it might be my first time of seeing a ghost, Darcy.
Well-
Wouldn't that be cool?
If you actually look... Okay, I've opened it up now.
Okay.
Because...
We got to get you to, from now on to open up the
them up.
photographs properly. Yes.
But you see this?
I do.
right
I see
here?
the little rock in sort of the middle of the, I would call the water area if there
But
was any
doesn't
water.
it look like there's a person sitting on it?
Does look like somebody sitting on it, yeah.
But when you blow it out,
It's just nothing.
it's nothing.
Yeah, I know. That's I guess the joy of old photographs, of
Yeah.
interpreting, our brains interpret patterns.
But you do realize that people jumped off this bridge many a times
Well-
to end their lives.
I can just imagine because it always happens when we see things. You say people jumped off them. Okay. Well, thanks. That was fabulous as always. You nailed so many things. As I mentioned, Seeing Dead People investigated the world's most famous unsolved murders by a man known only as Jack the Ripper. If you found this episode about Agnes Bings as compelling as I did, you may wish to head to our website on radiosydney.ca and check out episode 11, titled Who Was Jack the Ripper? Darcy's insights into the minds of his 5 victims and of Jack himself are incredible. Of course, Jack isn't the only serial murderer we've investigated. Darcy and I tackled the bizarre, unsolved axe murders of an entire family in Villisca, Iowa in 1912. Astonishingly, Darcy was able to tell us the exact order of the murders, something that just blew me away. Episode 17, The Villisca Axe Murders, is also available for immediate listening at radiosydney.ca. Just click on the Seeing Dead People tab along the top banner for immediate access to all our episodes.
Thank you for listening to Seeing Dead People, where goosebumps are guaranteed. We would love to hear from you with questions for Darcy about her psychic process or suggestions for other mystifying situations you would like us to investigate. Please shoot us an email to info@radiosydney.ca with Seeing Dead People in the subject line. New episodes air on our website, radiosydney.ca, on the first Saturday of every month. Episodes repeat Saturday nights at 8 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 10 a.m., both Pacific time. All episodes are available as downloadable podcasts at our website or on our YouTube channel, Nicola Furlong Mysteries. I'm Dorian Mortis, weirdly keen on seeing dead people. This has been a presentation of Radio Sydney.